shortly because we have a lot to say today, but thank you for joining our webinar today. And my name is Sue Goldner, and with me is Caitlin Corrigo-Millins today, and we want to welcome you to talking about ArcGIS Field Maps over the next hour. So we just turn our cameras on to say hello because we can't see many people in person these days, but thanks for joining us. So we're both based in the Toronto office. I'm a technical solutions specialist with technology adoption, and Caitlin is a GIS analyst. She's with tech support at present. And just to let you know, we are going to be recording today the session. You will be sent an email with a link from us, and you'll be able to watch it again at your own pace. Also, we have a survey at the end. We just want to know your thoughts on the webinar, so please fill this out and let us know what you think. We do have a QA panel. There's a lot of people. There's over 500 people on right now. So what I'm recommending you do is if you want to ask Caitlin and I any questions, or if you have any general webinar questions, type them in the Q&A panel. You can choose all panelists and click send. We will try and answer as many questions as we can in the webinar, and what we've done in the past is if we've been unable to answer them all, we'll follow up with a blog post with the most popular questions, and we'll leave our emails at the end so you can actually contact us, and we'll be happy to answer your questions. So today we're talking about a brand new app, which is ArcGIS Field Maps. So you're going to learn all about how to use field maps. First, we're going to talk about the brand new web app that you're going to use in the office to prepare your maps and layers for field work. Then we're going to talk about how the mobile app works, and you can see how your field workers would interact with it to collect and update data as well as track themselves. And then finally, we're going to talk a little bit about migration from your existing field app workflows, including Collector, Explorer, and Tracker in this first release, so you can start planning for moving forward with the new app. Now, what we want to do at this point is take a poll, and we're putting up a multiple choice type of poll here because we really want to know which of the mobile apps are you currently using for your field GIS workflows, and you can pick as many as you want. There is a none at all option at the bottom, and there is a you've tried the new field maps because it has been out in beta since this summer, but we want to know because we know field maps or field apps are very important to you just because you've shown us at conferences and we've seen what you've done out there, and they really help increase your efficiencies for collecting your data and having an authoritative source of data, as well as sharing that information with those back in the office. So just take a minute, and the poll will be open, I think, for another 20 seconds or so, and let us know which one of them you have used. So I know I've used all of them in some capacity. When I worked in local government, I started using Collector and Survey 123, and these apps have been out since about 2013 with Collector, 2015 with Survey 123, and other ones have followed. So the poll's just wrapping up right now, and we'll share the results, and we'll be able to see which ones you've used. So thank you for filling out that poll, and hopefully we can see the results. And can anybody see the results yet? There they are. So perfect. So it looks like, yeah, there's been a lot of users of Collector as expected, 69% of you. Another 58 is Survey 123, which I'm not surprised. 4% of you have actually used field maps, which is great. And only 18% haven't used any at a time. So what we're hoping is that after you see this, we'll get you inspired to get out and start using them and working with them in your field. So I'm just going to go through the first part of the slide. I'm just going to turn off my video at this moment just so you can kind of focus on what I'm talking about and take an overview of what field maps are. So before I start doing that, I just wanted to take a kind of a summary of what is our field operation solutions that we have offered up till now. So our approach has been to provide you with a focused set of apps that meet the needs of your field workflows in 6 key areas. And some of this is in the office that you're planning your GIS, and you might use your desktop Pro, or some of you still might be on ArcMap. And we have an app called Workforce that has allowed you to plan and coordinate assignments for people in the field. We've also provided Navigator app, which lets you navigate for directions both offline and online on your own records and be integrated with any other field maps you're using. Your crew might have also used the Tracker app, which we introduced about 2 years ago to track their location while they're in the field. And we've also offered something called Explorer, which is a read-only type of digital map book, really, that if you just have users who want to see what's out there, they have had that option. Now for data collection, we've given you 3 unique options, and we can see that from the poll, they've all been very popular, especially Collector and Survey 123. Collector's been a map-based data collection app, Survey 123 a form-based, and Quick Capture is a button-based. And we've seen a lot of you over the years very successfully deploy these apps either on their own or in combination. Sometimes a single app has met the needs of your entire workflow. Sometimes you've mixed and matched them, and we'll talk a little bit about this later in the webinar using things like URL links or webhooks or actually the Workforce app. So you may be wondering why we've decided to change our approach going forward. And we've also heard feedback on not only what's been good, but what hasn't been working for you. So we've heard things like, how do I decide which data collection app or set of apps do I use to fulfill my needs? We've heard a lot of times there's too many apps to deploy, too many apps to train users to work with. We need to download each one separately from the App Store. Our users need to sign into each app separately using their ArcGIS identity. Mobile users also need to download multiple copies of map data for offline use, and switching between them is sometimes more complex. So let's see how now we're going forward to help you streamline your approach to field data collection. So what we've done is we're taking the map-based field apps and we're combining them into one app, which is the Field Maps app. So Field Maps is going to be released in phases as well. So not everything on this wheel is available to you right now in Field Maps, but ultimately Field Maps, you'll be able to do your planning, your navigating, your exploring, and your data capture in a map-based app going forward. So that's what our field solutions will look like once Field Maps, all the phases are being released. Exactly which apps are being replaced by Field Maps? Well, the simple map viewing and markup capability of Explorer, the field data capture and inspections capability of Collector, being able to track where your users are, which was provided by our Tracker app, planning and task management, working with assignments as you could with Workforce, as well as turn-by-turn navigation, which was provided by Navigator. So these are all map-focused apps, and we think they make a lot of sense to combine them. If you've used any of these map-focused apps, you'll know they built on the same ArcGIS runtime, so they already had a very similar look and feel, and it does make a lot of sense to combine them. I just want to point out what we're not going to be rolling into Field Maps, because I think it's really important for you to understand that as well. So ArcGIS dashboards are a web-based application, which is really used more for presenting your data, not only including your assets, but also your field operations. So this is going to remain a unique web app because it has a lot of unique capabilities. It's not going to be part of Field Maps. Neither is Survey 123 or Quick Capture. They're very distinctive from Collector if you've used them before. These 2 apps are also powered by App Studio, which is a developer product, and this gives you the source code so you could further customize them. And Survey 123 uses XLS Form to build the data collection form, and it's our only app out of all of our ArcGIS suite that uses that, and it will continue to be unique, and we'll continue to build and give you even more great stuff with Survey 123. Quick Capture is also unique because it's very focused. If you've used Quick Capture, it's a big button data capture experience. It's not designed for entering a lot of details. It's more for the buttons are really tightly configured to capture everything a user needs by just tapping on it if you're on a road patrol or some other kind of at-speed data collection. So these are going to remain unique, and those capabilities won't be incorporated into Field Maps. So I don't know if anyone on the call has viewed the San Diego UC this year. It was a remote or virtual event, but I sat in some of the Field Map sessions, and 95% of the audience was really happy about combining these 5 apps into one. So I'm really hoping that everyone else will be happy about that as well. So I've already mentioned a couple of different options for you here on why we're doing this. It's easier to have a single app for you to deploy and for your users to learn. They only need to sign in one time. We can help you eliminate duplication of offline content, as well as it will have a smaller aggregate app footprint download on your device, so you don't have to worry about running out of room on your device. And it also helps us to provide that consistent user experience across apps. And we can improve our feature deployment. This is really key because what we're planning to give you is smarter forms in a web map. We're supporting indoor mapping with the current release of Field Maps. The things in italic on this slide we are going to add in the future, such as indoor positioning, supporting utility networks, doing things like geofencing alerts, as well as providing that routing and navigation with live traffic. So what you're seeing with Field Maps today with this first release is only a really small part of what we are planning to include with it. So we're hoping you'll get a good sense today of what you can do with Field Maps, and just remember a lot more is coming in the future as well. So as I mentioned, Field Maps is two parts. It's not only a mobile app, and the mobile app is for Android and iOS devices. And this mobile app lets you view the maps, collect and update your data, record and share your tracks. Indoor mapping is supported. Going forward in future phases, you'll be able to receive assignments as well as get that turn-by-turn navigation right within the app. But it provides a back-office web app, which we think will really help you simplify how you deploy your maps. So for creating the smart forms, for any other configuration you have to do with that map, it was multiple steps if you've worked with Collector or Explorer and you learn how to do it, but now we're trying to streamline that and give you that in one app and more to help you to be able to get your field deployments out the door really quickly. So with that, I'm going to hand things over to Caitlin, who's going to take you first through seeing what the Field Maps web app is all about. So over to you, Caitlin.
Thanks for the introduction, Sue. So what we're going to be talking about today is, as Sue said, I'm going to talk about the Field Maps web application, and then I'm going to demo it for you. So Sue's already talked about a lot of what we can do, so I'm just going to run you through some of the finer details. So ArcGIS Field Maps simplify field deployments. So this is a brand new app that will be integrated with your ArcGIS organization, whether you're in online or enterprise. It's going to be used to configure and deploy maps optimized for your mobile workforce needs. A future phase will allow you to create and assign tasks to mobile workers and also create and share views of worker locations. The configuration and setup to get going with your field workflows used to require separate steps completed within multiple locations in ArcGIS Online for your feature layers, your web maps, and forms. But the Field Map web app greatly streamlines this preparation process. In this app, we can now do things for managing the offline capabilities. We can create and configure templates, pop-ups, the new smart forms, and sharing and deploying maps. All of these are going to be much more streamlined and efficient. You're going to notice in the demo that it's going to use a lot of the same capabilities of ArcGIS Online and your enterprise organization. We're trying to keep a really consistent user experience to help you all more easily transition to the Field Maps web app for your in-office workflow. So this is, as Sue said, our first release of Field Maps. There is more coming. This is just a small sample of what Esri has planned for us. So the developers have prioritized the capabilities based on the feedback from your peers on what is most important and prioritized. I'll try and share with you what I've learned from the developer team on what's coming through this webinar. And in the resources, we're going to let you know where you can give your feedback to our developer team on how it's working for you and how well it meets your needs once you start working for it. In the web app, we're going to have some really cool features like browse with hiding maps from fields. There's going to be some table support, conditional visibility using the Arcade Expression Editor. Unfortunately, we're only going to be providing setups from 10.81, as this is the first release of Enterprise the Field Maps web app will support. As you can see on the slide, when it's in the Field Map app, it needs to stay there. Any changing of it outside the app will reset the field map in the builder unless you use the beta map viewer. I'll be showing you a little bit more about that later. In the mobile app, you're going to have the arcade feature set, support for the indoor data model, as Sue mentioned earlier. You can switch floors and buildings, start or stop tracking from the GPS info panel. And I believe Sue has more on that for you later. So on to the next one. So on September 18th, we launched the public beta for Field Maps Web. The web app brings together settings and configuration steps that were previously needed to accomplish using multiple steps in your organization for Collector and Explorer. The Field Maps web app is a drag and drop experience that allows you to preview your layer settings as you configure them. So you're going to be able to use field maps to configure your layers. You can work with feature layer templates that are used to set up how features are created and edited. You can have templates to define categories of items that editors are allowed to add to a feature layer based on specific combinations of attributes. You'll be able to create them in Pro or in the online map viewer, but we suggest using the map viewer beta since it is most compatible with this technology. The Field Map web app will allow you to duplicate existing templates and modify these for your in-use field. When you define unique symbology, you can define subtypes of feature types, which are additional templates based off the feature attributes. An example could define an available pipeline types based on the diameter of the pipe and the material that it's made of. Well-defined feature templates will help your editors add only the type of features that are allowed. You can also provide a palette of valid feature types for editors to create and modify. When you're looking at your base map, you should make sure that it is compatible, as there have been some issues that we're hoping will be resolved shortly. And in your reference layers, you will also have a table layer. So your tables are they're not available to go offline just right yet, but it is a change coming in the future. Smart forms used by field maps are different from the Survey 123 ones. Survey 123 uses the XLS form, which is very different and unique in use of ArcGIS to Survey 123. ArcGIS Web Maps use the new Web Map Smart Form specification. This is described in our developer documentation if you follow the above link. The Web Map specification describes the JSON object which defines a web map. This new specification is a collaborative effort across the ArcGIS platform that includes development within Esri's API and in native runtime SDKs, and is written directly into the Web Map specification. ArcGIS Field Maps is leading this effort, but in the future you may be able to use the same forms authored in Field Maps in other apps like ArcGIS Map Viewer, ArcGIS Pro, and Customs apps using the ArcGIS API for JavaScript. Finally, you're going to be able to update the sharing settings from your maps from Field Maps Web and not have to go to item details. I will be showing you a little bit more about this later in the demo. So configuring the form. I know a few people I know are really excited about this. So we're going to show you in the demo how to work with smart forms because it's a brand new experience. So you're going to access it from the layer settings, as you see on the left-hand side of the picture. The form builder panel on the right is used to create your form. There are 3 key approaches that you can take to get started with configuring a new form. You can fill your form canvas by converting the pop-up created for your feature layer. I'm going to be showing you how to do this in the demo. The second way is you can fill your form canvas with all the attributes of your feature layer, regardless of the pop-up. You can also manually drag and drop to add attributes and groups to the form canvas. Your attribute order can be rearranged by dragging and dropping in the order to provide editors with those attributes that are most important at the top of the form. You can group attributes together and set if the group is expanded or collapsed by default. For each attribute, you can change the name that appears to the mobile user, which is the alias. You can also add a brief description if you'd like. You can choose to show or hide fields dynamically using an expression to one or more attributes. Conditional visibility expressions are created using the Arcade editor. It's the same one that you'll be using in Map Viewer, and the Arcade language expression is used across the ArcGIS platform. To add an expression, either select an attribute or a group. The ArcGIS Field Maps web app applies the Arcade expression, and I'm going to be showing you how to do that a little bit later as well. You can also group attributes together and reorder your groups and set them to be collapsed or expanded by default. I know that when I worked in the field, I would have really loved this because it beats the endless scrolling when you're trying to find things. But please don't forget that you can't open your map again in Map Viewer, as your form will be lost. Once you have configured this form, you should only use Map Viewer Beta. So we're also going to be targeting more capabilities such as support for additional element properties and form title, and support for marking field as required. So we have a lot more smart form capabilities coming in future releases, including what will be what will be supported in our future services schema. So we're going to move into the demo that I have prepared for you. Just give me a second. I'm just sharing my screen. Okay, so what you can see right now is I have created a map called Toronto Field Maps. I figured if you were going to be learning something interesting, I should also learn something interesting. And since I'm new to Toronto, I decided to create a map for points of interest in Toronto. So in our map, we've got some points, some lines, some polygons. I picked a very simple light gray canvas, one because it's compatible with going offline in the mobile app, but also because it made my map really pretty. So as you know, when you go into settings, you can view the settings, but also you can see if you want to enable offline capabilities or not. You can check out your map areas and you can manage them from here. But down at the bottom, you're going to see the same form that you would see in Collector. So use an ArcGIS Collector or use an ArcGIS Field Maps Mobile. You can hide this here if you'd like, or you can also hide it in the Field Maps application itself. So we're going to open the map itself in Map Viewer Beta. So the map itself is fairly simple. I've applied some clustering to a lot of features going on. We've got our point feature that we're going to edit later using the smartphone. We've got some lines. We've got some polygons happening. There are no tables. Since I wanted to be able to take this map offline, I wanted to ensure that we would go without a snag, so I did not include a table. As I said before, the base map is just a very simple light gray canvas. So once you're satisfied with your map in the beta map viewer, you save it. And then we're going to go up here and click on Field Map Beta. So as I said before, when we looked at the settings, you can actually hide things you don't want the mobile application users to see by just hiding the field map in the demo. It's very simple and very easy. From this, you can actually edit the sharing. We're going to click in here. So this is a very simple page. Not much can be done with it. You've got your thumbnail up here. If you click edit, it's just a summary and changing the title. You can see that it is not shared currently for to be able to be used offline, and it is shared with the organization and our group for this demonstration. When we roll into content, you're going to see that I've already configured some of these smart forms. So you click over here, I've got Toronto Parks. I just want the name. Bike lanes, we want the length of the trail and the name of the trail. But points of interest is where we're going to be doing most of our work right now. So we are going to have to convert the pop-up. And then you can see we've got all of these attributes. I don't want my field workers to see all these attributes, so I am just going to delete as we go. So currently we see the title and we see the category of what the feature is. So we're going to change that name. And we are going to add a new group as well. So if I have the title and the category in my group 1, what should I add as well? Well, maybe if I find a place really interesting, I'm going to want the address or maybe a description of the level. But what I'm going to do is actually add the address into the first group here. And in the second group, I'm going to add the level that I want to see it, a 1 out of 10 rating, and a description. So let's have a nice description of the museum, and so it'll remind me why I want to see it later. So we are going to, on the address, create a conditional visibility sphere. So if this is not a museum, I don't want to see it. So we're going to add an expression. So it's very simple. So category not equal museum. We're going to test it. Result is true, so we're good to go. We're going to click OK. And so now this field will depend on if this is a museum or not. The group name, we're going to change that to interested. Points of interest up here. Attraction found. Now, Sue's going to have a different version of this, just it's a little bit older than what I am demoing right here, but it should still work the same. So all we need to do is hit Save Form, and we are ready to go. Next, we're going to take a look at the offline capabilities. So to make sure that you have that you can take this offline, everything here has to have a green check mark. Otherwise, it's going to create an error. You should also make sure when you're uploading from ArcGIS Pro that you have editing and sync enabled. If sync is not enabled, you will not be able to take it offline. So since everything looks good, I'm going to take this offline now. We're going to check out our map layers. And it looks like our map layers are good. So I've created 2 for today's demo. I'm not sure which one Sue is going to use, but it should be an experience for all of us. I'm excited to see what she's got for us. So to create a new map layer, it's very simple. It's just a drag and drop experience. You can change the name, you can change the level of detail, and you can also change when you want to update the packages for download. Usually you would hit save, but we're going to hit cancel because this takes a while to actually package. So we've got some map areas for Sue in her demo. And next, we're going to go down here and look at the features and attachment delivery. So here you can see all of the things you can do to your editable features, the things you want for read-only features. You can also change the tile package for the offline base map as you can in many of our other applications. I'm going to leave all of these as the default for Sue. Next, we're going to go into the sharing. So as I said before, you no longer have to go into the item details over here. You no longer have to do that. It can be done straight from the field map application itself. If I can find it, there we go. And since I already have it shared with my organization and shared with our demo group, I'm just going to leave it and hit save. So this will update the map items you saw previously, and it will update here. And now I'm going to hand this back over to Sue, and she is going to take you through the demo.
Oops, am I unmuted now? I think I was muted there. Sorry about that.
You're good now, Sue.
Okay, I was talking to myself. I was the cat sleeping on the screen. That was me. I just wanted to answer a few questions that have been coming in. I've been trying to answer them in the Q&A panel. A lot of questions are in. There's 850 people online, so that's wonderful. So some of the questions we've had have been things that Caitlin's showed about that beta web app. The web app will be out of beta later this year, and it should also be released with the release of Enterprise that is coming up with that ArcGIS online release when it's out of beta. You can use that now if you want. All it is creating some smart forms for you. You can continue to use your as-is Explorer and Collector maps with the Field Maps mobile app, because the Field Maps mobile app did come out of beta this week, so that's had a lot of testing, and that is done. So if you're worried about using something in beta, you can use your existing maps as they are, and you don't have to do anything with the web app. The other questions I've had about is different combinations of what version of Enterprise are working with Field Maps, and what I actually recommend you do is that you go online, and I'll give you all the resources, and you look at the FAQs, and it basically explains for what version of Enterprise it is supported for editing, for going offline, for working with related information, and so on. It's all online in the FAQs, so just go into more detail. You've seen the first look at smart forms, as Caitlin reminded you. This is just the first cut. We're doing a lot more with those smart forms in a web map. It's not going to be Survey 123 because Survey 123 uses XLS form, and XLS form is extremely sophisticated. We can't quite port that over to what we're building for the feature layer, which is what you're seeing, the web map smart form specification. But going forward, we are going to add things like making required values, adding radio buttons and distress scales, a couple of different types of question types that you've had in Survey 123. I still recommend, if you have a really complicated form, Survey 123 might be the way to go. And I just wrote a blog post comparing the map-based survey and quick capture button map-based data capture apps. If you want to go on our Getting Technical blogs, if you're still trying to decide, kind of just take what I've said about collector with better forms coming just for field maps as well. So just stay tuned, and hopefully you'll be able to see what we can do with field maps. I just wanted to take a minute to talk about the mobile apps before I launch into the demo. And one thing I want to emphasize is this release, and going forward, field maps, it will be only on iOS and Android for the mobile app. So we're not, our old Collector and Explorer did work on Windows. Just based on how many people were using it on Windows, our team is not building field maps mobile for Windows. Something I can hint at is that I think it's Pro, is it 2.7 or 2.8? The next release will provide GPS capability. If you really need to use a laptop to collect data with a map-based app, that might be something you'll look into, and we'll give you more information going forward. The current mobile app release, it was released on Monday, available in both iOS and Android, gives you all the existing capability of Explorer. So working with read-only maps. So I got a question I was going to answer before, but it popped in my head right now. What if you have an editable map and somebody who's only a viewer opens it? You can still open the editable map and use it in read-only capacity. You won't be able to edit. Your user type or your privileges in your ArcGIS Online won't allow you to edit. So even if it's an editable map, you could have the same set of people using it for exploring and editing. They just wouldn't be able to edit. So that's kind of a nice thing. You won't have to deploy the map twice, right? So you can also access read-only maps without an ArcGIS identity, so no sign-in. So I'll show you that in the demo. If you've worked with Explorer before, you may have worked with a mobile map package. So a mobile map package is something you can use ArcGIS Pro tools for. It packages up your layers and base maps and optimizes it for offline map use, and you can get it onto that device either by copying it directly or sideloading. And I put lots of links on this page so you guys can click through them later on and find out how exactly to do this. Or you can share it with your ArcGIS Online organization, and your field workers can download that mobile map package while they're connected. Once it's on their device, they're good to go. If you've used Explorer, you know, although it's not an editing tool, we provide markup capability, so just putting in notes and sharing it with other people in the field. You can do this in field maps, and not only when you're in read-only mode, but this will also let you do that in editing mode as well. And so, again, it works connected and disconnected. The idea is the same as before. If you're planning to go disconnected, you have to download those offline maps before you go disconnected. If you're a collector user, all the existing functionality in Collector for editing is provided. So GNSS devices, if you're working with a high accuracy GPS device, we do provide support for that with field maps, and it will work whether you're in read-only mode or edit-only mode. There's a topic in the help online on working with high accuracy data collection. You just have to collect your device to your GPS and do a couple settings, and you'll be using that high accuracy location. What I want to point out too is I got quite a few questions about Android. Android and iOS are on par now with field maps. So things that you were lacking in Collector on Android, including feature snapping, using the multiple forms and bulk edits, and recently entered values and forms, they're in both the Android version and the iOS version of Field Maps Mobile. I just want to point out that when you go to the help, there is a separate help topic. It's a little drop down for the mobile app for Android and iOS. Just the steps are slightly different. So if you're going to look at what's available, just keep that in mind. And finally, tracking location. So we've provided a standalone tracking app, which you'll still be able to get it as a standalone app if that's all you need for your user, but you'll also be able to use your tracking capability within your Field Maps app, whether you're exploring or editing a map. So to track your location, it's the same capability as before. Your ArcGIS organization needs to have location tracking enabled, and your mobile user needs to be licensed for Tracker, and it is an add-on licensing. I will take a slide closer to the end to just explain to you the licensing. They just have to turn on My Tracks to start tracking, and it will work while they're connected and disconnected. The only feature that you could do in Tracker, you could schedule your tracking to turn on and off. This first release doesn't have it, but it is coming to a future release. So we have had questions about using the app link. So I know I've showed this a lot in the past that our URL app links have been really useful for any of our mobile apps to link one app to another. So you might be collecting data in Survey 123, but you want to flip over, let's say, to a complex hydrant inspection form in Survey 123 from being in Collector. Well, we have a new set of app links that will work with field maps, and the parameters are structured in the same way, and they support a lot of different options, including opening a map, searching on features, setting a location. You can also path attributes and do initial feature capture and more, and just follow the help topic to find out. But any existing map links, like if you have a Survey 123 map link and a collector map, you can open that map in Field Maps, and that link will work as it did before. So I mentioned indoor mapping before. You may have not seen what indoor mapping is, but we introduced an ArcGIS Indoors information model to support looking at data inside multiple floors. And some people have started using this just to map their offices and things like shopping malls and other locations. And what you'll be able to do, and you can do actually with field maps now, is if you have a map saved with an indoor information model, you can view this in field maps and navigate through the floors. And it doesn't need any additional license. We are going to be providing a lot more capability going forward, but at this point, we can only view those indoor maps. So with that, I'm going to launch right into the demo, and I'm going to share my screen. And hopefully you can see my screen here, and you can see my iPad. Let me just minimize this here in the background. So I want to start opening the Field Maps app. And just before I do that, if you notice, I actually have Explorer and Collector on at the same time. That's another thing I want to point out to you. You can have your existing apps that the current release of Field Maps is replacing on your device at the same time to help you transition over. So this would be Explorer, Tracker, and Collector. So when I open Field Maps, actually you can notice that I haven't signed in. Let me just do that again because it looks a little bit, it's clearer to show you. It's just popping me in the map. But you have an option not to sign in and see the sample maps you see on the screen. These are just maps provided by us to just let you go and have a look at what you can do without having any sign-in. So another option would be a map that you've shared publicly. So I shared a map, and you can filter searching field maps by either read-only capacity or looking for all maps. And I've created a map on Ontario wineries that I've shared with the public. So the idea is that if you had a consultant or something like that and you wanted to share a map with them, you can actually create a mobile map package, and you can put an expiry date onto your map so that it can be only open for a certain time, and this is done in ArcGIS Pro. So my map, you can have a look at it now. The interface looks exactly like Collector or Explorer. So it has the same type of capability. So you can see the layers, and I only have the markup layer or the winery layer on here for my layers. I can do a search. So I'm going to search on the Vineland Estate Winery. And then once you find your location, you can go to directions. So directions would pop you out to, I think, Apple Maps right now. I'm just going to close that. Or if you're a licensed user of Navigator, you could go out and go to Navigator. And sorry, there's a little bit of a lag I can see with what I see on the screen and what you see, so now we're caught up. The other options you can do is use your compass. So it shows my current location in the Toronto office, and it can just orient me to where I need to go. Once you've configured your map for things like your bookmarks, you could change the base map. So I'm going to go out down to the Vineland. I live in Hamilton, and this is one of my favorite areas in the Niagara Winery district. Lots of really nice wineries to go to. And what we can do is use a couple other tools here. So I could change my base map. So I'm a public user. These are just the ArcGIS base maps that we provide, and things like an imagery map. You could use this distance tool. So if I wanted to measure between, let's say, the distance between Ridge Point Winery and Vineland Estates, I can see that it's, less than a kilometer away. Then I can use the markup. So the markup is just like a redlining capability. You can let you just draw on the map, and then you can add a label on here. So the point is when you create a markup, it's stored on your device as part of your Field Maps project in this case, but I can share that markup. And as an anonymous user or someone who is not logged into ArcGIS Online, what I can do is I can just email it to someone or airdrop it, and I know a lot of people have done that in the field. So I could go and send this off to someone like that. So that's using it as an anonymous user. What if I'm a read-only user? What if I'm a viewer? So I'm going to sign in as a couple different roles in this demo. I'm going to sign in, and you can see it is supported with ArcGIS Online or ArcGIS Enterprise. So I'm in ArcGIS Online, and I'm just going to sign in as my viewer role first. Oops, no. Sorry, I went to save, and that was my editor role. So we're just going to sign out and do that again. There we go. And it just did give me a warning if you notice that I need connectivity to sign in and out. But I've tested it, and honestly, if you're signing in and you're signing out, if you stay signed in, you can go offline and you can still work with it because my iPad doesn't have cellular data, and I was able to work with it offline long as I've stayed connected, right? Or sorry, long as I've stayed signed in, even when I become disconnected, it will work. And it will keep you signed in. If I close it down, it will keep me signed in until I sign out. So okay, so now we're signing in as a viewer. And I just want to show you a couple of different settings here. You can see a new option popped up saying My Tracks. So this will pop up if you are a user with a tracking license. Now, I'm a viewer type of license in my ArcGIS organization, but the tracking license you can provision to any level of user, including a viewer. So as soon as I have tracker license, I can just turn on My Tracks right within the app. And I can see that this map here, if I just show you the map details, this is a map I created. It says it's an editing map. But if I open this map, you can see that there is no editing button. There's no editing option. So I can't use it in editing capacity. So you can use the same map for an explorer or a read-only type of user as well as an editor. So what else can we do with this map? The same kind of things as I showed you just exploring. Same options are here. I'm just going to show you with going out to the Hamilton area. You can also see I have a GPS accuracy displayed. It's horrible because I'm in the middle of a building here, so you're not going to see too much here actually. Let me just see if I have a better bookmark where I've actually collected some data. So you can see that exploring it, I have some tree inspections. There is no editing option available for me, right? It says it's an editing map. I'm not an editor. I can't edit. I can view the attributes. I can do directions and so on. I can't edit. So now let's go in and go sign out of this user. And I'll talk about the settings when I sign in. Sign in with my editor user, which is the one that it keeps wanting me to sign in anyways. There we go. And see how Field Maps works in an editing environment. Just to show you a couple of the different settings, if you're an editor, you'll want to configure some of these collection settings. I've bumped my accuracy massively up because I'm in the middle of a building and I want you to be able to see what I'm doing. You can also set things like a confidence interval. If any kind of accuracy requirements your organization requires for a collection, you can set up in here. You could set up your GPS averaging if you have a minimum number of points you need to collect for data capture. You can also set up your streaming, and you can, sorry, there's a bit of a lag. The streaming option allows you to set up either a time or a distance. For streaming your points, you can change the photo size. There's something here about related types. So if you're using related information, the default is checked off like this. What this means is that users cannot collect a related feature unless they collect the main feature first. So they can't collect features outside of a relationship that will enforce this. If there's any reason why you want this turned off, you would have to toggle this button on. Again, all this is really detailed in the online documentation. And again, your snapping's on, and I'm in iOS, but this is available in Android as well. Other settings are things like units. Those are just your coordinates and measurement units you prefer to see. Auto directions, again, you could always ask, or you could go to either Navigator or your other apps on your device, such as Waze or Google Maps. I don't have those on my device. Auto sync is important for working with offline. What it will do is if you're in an area where you're offline some of the time and you automatically get a connection, it will allow you to sync, but I'll also show you how you can sync at any time. So what I'm going to use is this Field Maps editing map. And this is what Caitlin was working with earlier. And what I'm going to do is just open this. And again, I'm working in a connected capacity. And you can see my location is captured. You can see I have my GPS accuracy. I can tap on that GPS banner at any time to see what my GPS current position is. And the provider is integrated. I forgot to show in the settings, there is a button. As long as you connect to your external device, you can set up your additional provider and you will use that accuracy and get much better accuracy than I am right now. You can see something in the lower right screen. It's the collect button. So now we are in edit mode. So now we're able to go and not just view data, but just also edit as well. So how does editing work? Well, what I wanted to show you is that there's two ways you can start editing. And if you're a collector user, this is very similar to working with collector. You can select the feature, you can see the information, and then you can select edit, right? And then you're in edit mode, and you can see I have some typos in there. I just went out really quickly to try and capture something on the rooftop garden. But you can see that in Collector, we had the option, and it's just a little bit laggy, that you can pull the form up to take more of your screen up instead of just having the, the map. So which is kind of nice. You can see that we've grouped some of the features here. So this is just some of the beginning of the smart form capability that we are giving to you, and there's a lot more coming. But what if I want to add a new feature? Let me just pull this down, show you more of my screen here. Well, then I can click the Add button. And then I can see, oops, keeps wanting to pop back here. Then I can see those three types of features that Caitlin configured the map for to add. So I could add an attraction, and I could choose from the drop-down that she's provided here what kind of attraction. Let's say I want to do a museum. And then I can put in additional information. So you can see the forms are honestly quite limited right now, but this is just the first cut. And I'll give you some resources on where you can give us feedback, because our developer team really wants to know how to prioritize what you want to see in the forms. So first is just grouping and cleaning up that form and making some types of conditional visibility. And later on, we'll add a lot more there. So I'm just trying to think of what else I wanted to show you in the demo. In the layers, once you have your tracks, you can just view your tracks. I don't have very many because these are just the tracks that I collected not too long ago. There's a smart rendering option. If I turn it off, I don't see my tracks because they're not really good quality. I've just been walking around the office this morning, but your tracking is just now another layer in your map. And going forward, we mentioned that we are going to be having workforce as part of Field Maps. You will be able to see your workforce assignments show up right within the map. So with that, I think I'm going to end the demo and go back to the PowerPoint. I'm going to just stop sharing my screen and take a few more questions. And then we have a little bit to wrap up, so we're going to try and go through. Now, I see a couple questions about webhooks. We don't yet provide webhook capability for Field Maps, but it will be coming soon. A couple other questions. Let me just see what I had. Yeah, I mentioned the windows. Somebody asked about proximity alarms. We're looking at putting that on the horizon so that if you get within a certain distance, an alarm pops up. Again, the Survey 123, we're not going to be able to give you everything with Survey 123, but we are going to try and add a lot of additional smartphone capabilities. And if you have domains and subtypes that you've already built into your feature layers, you will be able to use them as is in Field Maps Mobile. Let's just go through a few more slides just to wrap up, and then we'll do more questions at the end. And what's important to remember is that Field Maps is a phased release. So we're in the first phase, and the web is in beta, and we're looking to release this in December out of beta. We're giving you the same option to try out as we have with the map viewer. It's in your organization, and you're able to just try it out. It just adds a bit of additional capability to your layers and web maps to work with field maps. So we've released, sorry, that date should be November 2nd. It was released on Monday night. The first release of Field Maps Mobile for iOS and Android Collector Explorer Tracker. The next release will have Workforce. We made some changes with Workforce in the summer release on structuring the projects and making it available to go offline. That's all going forward into making it part of Field Maps. And then finally, we'll include Navigator. So you'll be able to have this all-in-one app. Right now, as I mentioned, if you have Navigator, you can just push your directions out to Navigator as it is. So we're just in that first phase. Just to talk a minute about licensing. Licensing for Field Maps follows along with what we've been doing with our other mobile apps, but there's a little bit of overlap just because Field Maps can be used in read-only as well as editing capacity. So at the top right of the screen, click on the FAQs. That will give you a lot more detail than I'm able to provide right now. So Field Maps, you'll be able to use them at all levels of user. So I showed you using a viewer. A viewer will just be able to use any map in Field Maps in read-only capacity, even if it's an editing map. An editor, if you want to do more than map viewing, you'll be able to add on, I think it's currently a collector license, but it will add on an editing license. And then you'll be able to use that as well with the Field Maps mobile app. The field worker is really the level of user we've targeted for just working in the field. So if you have a field worker type license, you've been able to work with Collector and Workforce and Survey 123 in the field, editing on the app, and Field Maps will follow this. And then Creator and GIS Professional are required for what Caitlin did in her demo. So actually creating maps, sharing data, and doing that type of thing. Because we think a lot of times it might be different roles in your organization. Yes, you might have creators and GIS professionals who do field work, but sometimes you might just have that field worker or viewer which just needs the app in a easier or a simpler capacity, and these user levels are targeted, like the price points are quite different, right? So if you just want a field worker, it's much more cost-friendly to just buy that license. Now, what about the location tracking? Well, tracking will remain as an additional license that you can apply to any user type. So if you want a viewer with tracking, you can do that. It's much more cost-effective than having to buy a field worker with a tracking license included. Same with Navigator. It's a separate license. It's an add-on. It can add on to any user type. Right? So as future phases of Field Maps comes out, I'll be able to tell you more about the licensing with something like Workforce. It will tie in with the existing Workforce licenses. That's an important thing to remember. But anybody who's tried Field Maps since Monday, your licenses as are will work with the app. So viewer licenses, view-only capacity. Any tracker licenses, they'll be able to track editors. They can edit with it just like Collector. I'm just going to spend one or two more slides talking about migrating, and there's actually a blog post from our product team as well as a really good migration guide that gives you a lot more detail than I can tell you right now. But what I want to stress is your web maps and your offline areas can be used as is in Field Maps Mobile. The existing functionality is on par. You will need to, in Field Maps, copy over or re-download your offline maps because they are sitting in a different folder. So if you've ever looked at your files, apps on your mobile device, there's a Collector folder, there's an Explorer folder, and within those folders, you can have things like your mobile map packages that you've downloaded or your offline base maps. You can actually go right to your mobile device and copy them from one folder to another. But the idea going forward now is your Field Map user, whether, if you're on the same device and somebody might sign in as a Explorer or a viewer and somebody signs in as an editor, they'll still have access to the same folder, and you can just have one copy of that offline map for editing or read-only use. What's new is you can use markup with your Field Maps in editing capacity, and you might want to take advantage of that Field Maps web app, even though it's in beta, to go in and do those, work with the feature templates and start working with smart forms and just getting used to how those work. And as Caitlin showed, the Arcade editor to add the conditional visibility. So again, your licensed users can add Navigator for directions to features, and tracker users can use tracking. So again, existing apps can stay on there. I don't have any details for how long we're going to still support Collector and Explorer and Tracker, because we want to give you a long time, and we usually give you a year or two to get over to the new app when we're replacing it. So it's a good idea to start using it now, but we're not taking away Collector like anytime soon, right? But just please understand that any new development is going into Field Maps and not Collector. Collector will be maintained as is. There'll be bug fixes. New development is going into Field Maps, and you can see there were a lot of things in Field Maps that you wanted in Collector. Well, they're going in Field Maps. We're not going to put any more into Collector. So I'm just encouraging you to start using it. You will have quite a bit of time, but the sooner you can use it, the sooner you'll learn, right? So Explorer users, again, I showed the anonymous access with no sign-in, opening maps in read-only mode. Also, your existing mobile map packages will work in read-only mode. You might have to copy them over, as I explained, for Collector. And your pop-ups will work as is. The pop-up the smart format of pop-up is coming soon. But I had this question from people earlier about now Explorer users or view-only users can access that GPS external receiver, and they can use location tracking. So that's new for Explorer users. Tracker users, your existing license, you can just open up the Field Maps app, you turn on tracking, you have the same options to just track while you're using the app. The scheduling is coming soon, and you don't need to turn on that separate tracker app, and you can actually remove it from your device if you want. The scheduler and Apple Watch is coming soon. Later phases, I don't have too much to say about migration because they're not in beta yet. So I'm going to give some resources very soon about signing up for the beta, because the Field Maps beta is still going on, because we're going to be adding Workforce next and then Explorer. So there'll be more details coming on the migration. For now, you stay with Workforce. I think Workforce will add the ability to link to a Field Map project. I'm not sure when. I'll try and find that out. And that's pretty well it for the webinar. We could have chatted a lot longer, and we tried to fit a lot in, but hopefully you got an idea of what Field Maps is all about and how you can use the web app to do your map configuration and start working with those smart forms to create the best mobile editing experience. And also I showed you how the mobile app works in view-only mode and also edit-only mode on your location. I just realized I forgot to do the offline map, but it does work the same way as Collector. I just ran out of time and had too much to say. This slide is good because I have all kinds of PDF links here for you to the brand new documentation online. So there's a lot of blog posts. There's a migration guide, which if you go to the Migrate to Field Maps topic, it will open up this guide, and it gives you a compatibility chart for what can you do in Collector and what can you do in Field Maps, for example. And it will show this for Tracker, Collector, Explorer, the three that are currently rolled in. There's really good documentation and resources, so you can find out exactly what version of Enterprise and what combination of feature layer is supported. We have a lot of blog posts from the product team coming out. And again, the early adopter link, if you want to sign up to test future phases and give us feedback, please do. If you've been on GeoNet, it's our community for you to provide feedback to our developer team, and there will be a section for Field Maps on there. And also, if you have ideas on what is important to you to have added to Field Maps sooner than later, I encourage you to go to ArcGIS Ideas, because that's where you can put in your feedback and you can vote on other people having same ideas as you, and our team does take that into account when prioritizing what goes in the next release. So a few more resources. We still have some webinars to go for this year, and if you go to our webinar schedule, you can see those. Esri, our head office, has put out 2 webinars. I think one of them was the same day as today, but you can view the recordings. Our training course, our field data collection and management course, is going to be updated for Field Maps for the next time they are offering that. And there's a couple other courses. And you probably saw in the banner, our GIS Day is on November 18th, and it's going to be mostly you, our customers, presenting, and I'll be part of that. So I hope you sign up and join us virtually this year. Just to mention, the recording will be available online, and we'll send you a link. We'll also send you a PDF, which will have all the full PDF version of the PowerPoint, and we'll have all your links in there that Caitlin and I have put in. Here's our email if you want to contact us. We'll get back to you if you have questions we couldn't answer, and we will create a blog post on this and answer your questions. So I don't know if Caitlin, you want to do anything? I know we've run out of time. What we can do is stop the recording, and we can try and answer some questions just online, if that's okay.